Welcome back to the line. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed a boatload of bills passed this session, but she also vetoed some interesting ones. That's our last topic for the show. And Jeffrey, let's start with the probation and parole reform bill. It would have, amongst other things, gotten rid of a bunch of technical violations that could send people back to jail, and it would require the parole board to detail its reasons for not paroling those with 30 plus years to life sentences. That was a tough one, that last bit right there. A lot of folks are looking for reform there.
Sure.
That parole board's not paroling anybody at this point. Did you have a problem with that veto? Did that make sense to you?
Not that particular one, but
Yeah.
the one that struck me was,
Please.
and we talked about this offline, is that the nonsensical legislation to actually deliver beer and wine to hotel rooms and homes. I'm glad she vetoed that.
Yeah.
But I come from this from a
I
different
was
point
into
of view.
that one.
So my perspective is, I mean, what I call hyper legislation.
Okay.
And there was a senator before the 60-day session that said, we have a lot of catching up to do, a Democrat. So for me, it's ideological progressive compensation,
Okay.
which I understand because you have a majority of Democrats in the House. But maybe I read too much John Locke and Thomas Jefferson as a kid. But
Yeah.
they always warned about micromanagement of the citizenry with just too much legislation.
Okay.
And I just think just the astounding, staggering mass of bills that were signed.
Right.
You know, I think Martinez vetoed 50%. So far, she's
Right.
only vetoing 9%, which is
Right.
partly a function of she just got in office. But I'm a little concerned with just being micromanaged to death as just a citizen in New Mexico with just this prodigious amount of law always just being put forth. And, you know, Jefferson warned against that, so did John Locke, that you've got to be very discerning and aware of your liberties being micromanaged away. They didn't use the word micromanaged.
Sure,
But
sure.
anyway, that's how I saw it.
I hear you.
Hyper legislation.
Mary, I want to stay on this probation and parole thing for just a little bit. We had a lot of folks who were not crazy about it. The Attorney General and a bunch of other folks out there were not crazy about it. But the opposition sort of came in afterwards. And Mo Maestas particularly was a little annoyed that, you know, we have a process to get across these things. You can't come in and gang up, you know, after the thing has been voted on. And you know what I mean? Was your sense of that one there? Because that was a hard one, my sense of the governor to veto. I think she wanted some reform in that area, but this wasn't quite the way to do it.
It was, I think, a veto of something like that passed by both houses. What probably was hard for the governor because she came in
Sure.
saying, you know, she was gonna, you know, had the whole rocket docket and send me your bills that were denied by the former governor that were passed on bipartisan with bipartisan support. So yeah, the politics of that bill was interesting. The parole reform aspect, of course, is a whole, like almost another conversation that was
right.
interesting. But yeah, that was the complaint by the sponsors, which Mo Maestas was one of them, was that he felt like they had all these meetings, and fair enough, I think I was at some of those meetings last summer. I wish I could tell you whether or not I remember seeing prosecutors there. And that it had gone through and arrived to the governor's desk, and that's when we started to see the letters sent to the, you know, that, you know, were sent to her, and then of course the press was looped in on it, that they were very much opposed to these. I think there probably was, in fairness to the DAs, I think there was a little pushback. There was some efforts for pushback before that moment, but that's when it really started to make noise.
Right.
I think that bothered. It's clear in her messaging that she was not happy that things played out that way.
That's
so I think we're going to see it come back.
Yeah, exactly right there. Eric, pick up on that if you would. I know she vetoed a lot more than just this one, but it's impactful on the greater society, so to speak. Why shouldn't people have a chance for parole? First of all, if they've done good time, all the things met all the criteria, the parole board doesn't seem to, you know, care about any of that.
Well, for better or worse, we have a system of elected district attorneys and attorney general, and so this looks very political. You know, if this was about the policy, I think there were ample opportunities to say, okay, what's going to work? If you know, how do you balance these two things, which is obviously keeping the community safe, but also, you know, the costs of incarceration, folks demonstrating some ability to sort of be rehabilitated, and I think the way it looks, and I think what the governor's saying and what her spokesman said, like, you know, to come in this late, this vocally, this publicly,
Right.
to use the media, looks a little bit like kind of posturing, right? So, and this made its way, I think what Mary was talking about, there's a whole interim process worth a lot of people worked on this. And there was a lot of support for sort of, this is a reform effort. You know, it's not just about public safety, it's about, you know, cost to taxpayers, it's about what's effective criminal justice policy. And so I do think it's unfortunate that it looked like it at the 11th hour it fell victim to politics, and and all these guys have to run, and some of them have aspirations for higher office, and they and the governor, it's hard for a sitting governor to say, well, because the messaging would not have been in her favor in terms of letting all these people out of jail to sort of roam the streets and do more.
It's easy to
harm.
demagogue, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely,
It's an easy one. Yeah, exactly right. Laura, interestingly, the governor used her line item veto to deleted just 1% of the capital projects out there as unready. That's a marked change from what we've seen in the past, certainly compared to the last governor that we had. Any signal there, that, as you see it, that she wants some reform in capital projects, certainly, but she's certainly not willing to hold back to prove a point.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that the whole capital funding process has always been a black box,
Yes.
right? It's one of those things
Good way
that
to put it.
we don't all fully understand how it works.
Right.
It's done very, they keep it very close to the vest. There's a process where legislators sometimes pool their resources together to fund something in particular. Other times they do small piecemeal projects. But they're hugely important for a lot of the small communities around the state. And so it's one of those things that's very, very, I think, high on local elected officials' priority list. But when it comes to the governor, she isn't necessarily, if she doesn't see, I think if she didn't see something that was ready, then I think it's her responsibility to make sure that she looks into it more carefully and makes determinations based on that.
Interesting, I'm glad you mentioned that. I love her quote here. This is a truly historic and huge investment, Lujan Grisham wrote in her signing message. For the past 8 years, projects that are necessary for small, rural, and under-resourced communities in New Mexico have gone unfunded. So is this a bit of catch-up ball here? Is that what you're sensing
I
here?
think that
She's
there's-
using the word investment,
Right. I mean, I think that's an important aspect of this entire process because, for example, one of my clients at my former law firm, one of my clients was the city of Jal. Very small local municipality in the far southeast corner of the state. Obviously, a lot of changes in terms of oil and gas happening, but that doesn't necessarily translate into infrastructure for the city. And in fact, they're dealing with a lot of increased use of their roads, a lot of increased use of their water system, a lot of water shortage problems, concern in terms of the water table in the next 40 years. So they have a need for capital projects. And that's not the only one, obviously. There's a lot of small municipalities around the state that are in a similar situation with their issues.
That's right.
And so for them, these kinds of projects are super important. When you look at a place like Albuquerque, where there's many more legislators that can pool their money together and sometimes fund a project
right.
that comparatively is much larger in scope, I think it causes a lot of heartburn for the local elected officials in those rural areas. So I think it's important that the governor and other statewide elected officials, as well as leadership, take into account that there's an important balancing act that needs to happen there with capital projects.
Interestingly, Mary, in her messaging about the things that she has vetoed, we haven't got all the messages yet, but in the stuff that she has talked about, she's made it pretty clear that she wants to leave a little wiggle room to come back with this stuff next year or the year after. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if she's, flat out said, this is the worst thing, don't bring this to me anymore, I can't stand this. She's just looking for a little bit better on some of these things. Would you agree with that? Is that her general tone here?
There was a lot of messaging like that for sure. There's two things that might be taken from that, and I don't know the answer to what it was.
Sure.
But one, of course, learning from the kind of tangle that Susana Martinez found herself in with not delivering messaging. And the other, having been a legislator herself and being in Congress and kind of understanding maybe what is useful to lawmakers. So yeah, there was a lot of that, and I think that is the other thing, it's why the conversation about her vetoes is interesting, is because it projects forward quite a bit.
Well, and let's not forget,
Interesting.
she was
Go ahead.
also a county commissioner.
Well, that's true too.
In Bernalillo County,
Local
and
official.
so
She
the
has a feel
local,
for it, yeah.
right, from sitting at a local level, you really want to have more information to understand how to develop proposals better for next time. So I think that was useful.
Eric, confidentiality for lottery winners. That was an interesting one. I didn't quite get the gist of the argument here. Has there been a problem with lottery winners in our state and people approaching them? You got all this dough now, I'm your friend.
My lawyer said I shouldn't talk about it.
I see.
I have no idea what that.
Yeah,
There's
it's an
that was
odd
one of the crazier ones. I wish I knew the backstory for that, but apparently it's an issue, and I would love to find out like who was in the room and decided that this was something that needed to be done, and more importantly,
And made it to the governor's desk.
who came to the governor and convinced her like this is, you know, we need to do this. I mean, with all the issues we have out there,
Right.
like we got to protect those lottery winners.
That's right.
You know,
That's
so,
right. Let me give another one that I know you know about, and that was, I'm sure you were surprised, she vetoed boosting reserves in favor of using money for education spending. And given all the, you know, the noise we're hearing about how we have Yazzie, you know, pressing on us, were you surprised by that? There was something about that that just sort of seemed off her being there a little bit.
for boosting reserves as
Yeah.
opposed to putting more into the education.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think she got a lot of pressure to sort of have this balance. We had a massive investment in education, so this idea that even though the projections are all very favorable with oil and gas revenues, and so like I think there's this political calculation that people are making is how do we balance, you know, fiscal prudence, responsibility, and making the investments we need to make, and I think that's a conversation that's going to continue. The next session's a budget session, although there will be some other issues on the call. So. I'm not super surprised. I think everybody's trying to find the balance, right? So.
Interesting point there. Thank you all for this week. Good stuff. We're up against the clock a little bit. The conversation continues online all week long. However, join our Facebook group, Focus on New Mexico. We'd love to hear your thoughts.